समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Okay, today we start with verse number 4 of the 6th chapter, and last time we had done that metaphor on riding, remember? Huh? Arurukshor Munir Yogam, that one, that verse. And it is that while you are learning to mount the steed, a wild horse, it takes effort on the part of the rider. But once he is firmly in the saddle, and then the reins are in his hand, his foot is in the stirrups, and he is fully in control, then it is easy to manage the horse, even if he is a wild horse. So, over that we had done. And accordingly, the sadhak as well. The mind is like a wild horse. So, when he is trying to control the mind, when he is trying to be a master of the mind, when he is trying to maneuver the mind will behave like a wild horse. So that is the difficult part. For the early seeker, that is the difficult part. But once he becomes yoga rudha, jisko kehte hain, yoga rudha. So once he is mastering the mind, he has mastered the mind, how to control the mind, then it becomes easy for him. So as I told you, that it is effort to become effortless, right? Last time. Now come to verse 4. यदा हिनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मस्वनुषज्यते सर्वसंकल्पसन्न्यासी योगारूढस्तदुच्यते. It says, when a man is not attached to sense objects or to actions, having renounced all thoughts, then he is said to have attained to yoga. Now look at this. The question in the mind of the student is that what are the symptoms of a yoga rudha? How does one become a yoga rudha? Uh, he has mastered the mind, okay, but how do you recognize that he is a yoga rudha? So जैसे आप कहते हैं ना, what are the symptoms of a disease? Similarly, he's asking, what are the symptoms of a man who is in control of his mind? Number one, he is not attached to sense objects. Number two, that he is attached to actions. Now, carefully, it does not mean that he does not do actions. It does not mean that he does not have any sense objects around him. That is impossible. A man has to eat, a man has to sleep, a man has to live, a man has to wear clothes, so all those are sense objects, you see. But not being attached to means mentally. He is not mentally holding on to anything. He doesn't grasp these things. He is not possessive about anything. So anything and everything is free to go or stay. Similarly, actions, like you and I, when we are doing an action, we get attached to that action. अच्छे से होना चाहिए, perfect होना चाहिए, ऐसा होना चाहिए, खराब नहीं होना चाहिए, all that is attachment to the action. But this man, he does the action and he does it perfectly with a great skill, but he is not attached to the result of the action. He is not. So this is the sign of a yoga rudha. Now, Gurudev used to give you Gurudev's example. He was a yoga ruler. So I have seen, him, somebody gave him something made of gold, he will immediately give it to someone else. Hmm? He gave me also. Some jeweler from Hong Kong got him a little pendant of his signature made in gold. That day happened to be my 50th birthday. And he immediately took it and he immediately threw it to me. And he said, "Here's the birthday gift." Now, see, he doesn't treasure gold. I've seen him, somebody from Paris got a beautiful latest watch for him, which was very expensive, all diamonds and everything. And we were sitting in Uttarkashi, and immediately he told one lady, he said, "Oh, what a bad watch you are wearing. Take this one." And immediately he took it and threw it to her. I've seen him giving away the most expensive of shawls, the most expensive of diamonds. People used to give, and he said, "I don't know why people give me these things. I have no use for them." And straight away, he used to give them away. Somebody gave him a very thick, heavy gold chain in front of me, and the moment he took it, he said, "Where is Pai?" Pai was the manager, general manager of Siddhwari. I said, "Swamiji, I'll just call him." I went and I said, "Mr. Pai, Swamiji is calling you." Mr. Pai was really flustered. He said, "Kya ho gaya? Kya ho?" I said, "No, I don't know. He's just calling you." Mr. Pai came and very concerned and prostrated. And Gurudev immediately put that chain around his neck and said, "For all the good work you are doing." Now you see this kind. So why I'm giving these examples to you is that it didn't matter to him whether this is diamond or this is gold or this is what or what, and he was not attached to anything at all. So like that. Now the third is Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi. Yoga rule, we are doing the symptoms of yoga rule, right? So Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi. In my last class, I had explained what is Sankalpa, because there's no one word in English that can tell you Sankalpa. Sankalpa is the constant thoughts coming into your mind, prompting you to do different kinds of activities which will give you joy, which will enhance your pleasure of life. So those thoughts suggest one thing to you, and before you begin doing that they have already suggested something else to you. So basically, Sankalpa Shakti uh, is Prabhavan is strong. So those who have a strong Sankalpa Shakti, they keep dancing all the time. A yoga rule is without Sankalpa. He doesn't plan things, "I'll do this, I'll do this." If a certain plan does come into her mind, to his mind, that is a sankalpa of the Lord playing through his body. And I have seen, experienced, not only just Swami Chinmayananda, but other Mahatmas that I have met. They used to live with us many times, three, four different Mahatmas. And they, whenever they used to make a sankalp, that used to materialize, because that sankalp is not their sankalpa. It comes through them, through their mind and through their speech, but is not rathas. So there is no attachment. See, attachment is mental, it's not physical. Thank God it's not physical. Otherwise, your body won't be able to move. We are attached to so many things in the house, even in your own house, you will not be able to move. So attachment is mental. And a Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi also, that has renounced Sankalpas. Hmm? Okay. Now, one thing understand, that when you are a seeker and you are going towards this, you know, uh, uh, going towards renouncing, please do it slowly. This is the advice given by yogis. You do not suddenly take sannyas, and you do not suddenly give up things. You cannot. Very slowly, slowly, people like us will again start collecting junk. We will again start collecting all kind of things, this from there and that from there and that from there. and go on collecting. So early seekers have to understand this, that they have to very, very slowly go on this path. Okay. A yoga rude is he in whom not even a trace of attachment is left. Only then can you call yourself yoga rude. People like us, even seekers who are on this path, we always say, I've given up this, I've given up this. I was so fond of this, it doesn't attract me anymore. That doesn't attract me anymore. Like that, you say. But a yoga rude, a man who can perfectly control his mind, is only he who has got not even a suspicion of attachment, not even a trace of attachment to anything, whether it is expensive or not expensive, whether it has sentimental value or no sentimental value, whatever it is, that man is not attached to it. You could see Gurudev having his food, whether he liked it or he didn't like it. Anybody cooked anything for him, brought anything for him, he used to just have it. And not even separately like that, or any food preferences. Even if he had, he wouldn't express. He would just eat anything at all, have anything at all, whatever the lady gave him. So, you see, sankalpas, these thoughts, they are thoughts of desire. They are desire oriented thoughts, that I want this, I want this. And when you do those, it is always with the thought that that thing will give me pleasure. That thing will enhance my pleasure. A new coffee house opened, let's go. Well, haven't you had coffee before? You make very good coffee in your own house, isn't it? Yet you want to go there. Why? Sankalpa. That must be a different experience. Let's go. Hmm? So it is like that. Now also understand that sankalpas also rise from within you. They are not only connected to outside objects, they are also connected to your old memories, and they can disturb your mind. See, when you are, the example given is of a placid pond, a small pond, that the waters are absolutely still on top. Okay. Haven't you seen that there's filth at the bottom of the pond? And when that filth starts really rotting, gases are formed. And then those gases rise up and they burst as a bubble on the surface of the pond. Now, then it sends ripples to the entire pond. So, the whole surface of the pond, instead of honestly and truly reflecting the blue sky, gets disturbed. The same is with the mind. You think that you have conquered all your sankalpas for outside objects, but the sankalpas that rise from within, a desire is generated from old memories, that is the filth of the pond, at the bottom of the pond. And some desire will rise up. Even in meditation, you will notice, while you are meditating, some old memory from somewhere will come up. Some old concern, anxiety, desire, something or the other, and it will come and disturb your meditational poise. So, see, this is those desires only wish. What you do, what do you do the whole life? What kind of desires do you have all your life? Tell me. There are only two kinds: earning or acquiring, and spending. So, earning and spending, you lay waste all your powers, all your energies. Imagine this precious life that you have to do great things. The whole life is spent in earning and then spending that money, earning and spending that money. Imagine what a waste it is. Hmm? So, when you are free of sankalpas, as free as you are of sankalpas and attachments, That much calm your mind will become, and that much calm it will be fit for meditation. So the only just earning and spending, just think of it. What have you achieved? What have you achieved? Just think about it. And how much of your life you have spent in doing this? Everybody does it, and so you are also doing it. I am a little bit richer than this one, and I have a little bigger car than that one, and I have a little bigger house than this one. That is all. How foolish, how stupid. How does it help you? It helps you in no way. And all these vanities, the ego you boost up, you fatten your ego, and then by the time by the time you feel that, oh yeah, I am somebody, you are wiped out. Power is gone, position is gone, hmm? Wealth is gone, name is gone, health is gone. And what are you left with? Just a name somewhere a little bit. That also for just for one or two generations. After that, the name is also gone. Do you remember the name of your great great grandfather? No. Who was he? What did he look like? Where was he? What did he do? Nothing. Think about it carefully. So, Yoga Rude is that one who understands the futility of useless work, useless labor, uselessness of going on acquiring. Even if you're acquiring, don't be attached to that. Use it for the benefit of people. Use it for as much as you can give that. Now come to verse 5. उद्धरेदात्मनात्मानं नात्मानम् अवसादयेत् आत्मैव ह्यात्मनो बन्धुर् आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः. This is also quite a famous verse. And this verse says Uddaret Atmanatmanam. It says you have to lift yourself by yourself. This is what it is saying. That nothing else can help you to lift yourself. Okay? If you don't try, very soon you will go on uselessly spending your energy till your body breaks in disease and old age and death finally. So one has to wake up, one has to be alert about the goal of life. One has to seriously question one's pursuits in life. Why am I doing what I'm doing? How many people question that? They don't. They're just habitually doing whatever they're doing. And they never think that this life is so precious. Is it worth doing just this much? Have I done anything noble? Have I done anything to help the world and the society? No, they don't think. Now, they also, many people I know, they don't want to make the effort. ये जो है ना, उद्देर उद्धरेद आत्मनात्मानम. They don't want to make the effort. I know a lady who said to me, look, I can't do all this sadhana. All I want is that some Mahatma should put his hand on my head and I should realize. So I said to her, this is not possible. This is not the way it happens. You have to work up. And this lady is nicely into the world of objects, wanting this, wanting that, traveling all over the world. And she's very, very old. Now she's into her 90s. But traveling all over the place, building a new house, even now at this age. Imagine. So, and then furnishing it, acquiring things to put over there. Anyway, so Gurudev used to say that there is no powder packet which the teacher will give to you to eat and then you will suddenly realize. That is not it. Also, the packet prasad he used to talk of. He used to say there is no packet prasad that you can go to a realized master and say, give me a packet, please. And he will give it to you. And then with that, once you have that prasad, your mind becomes pure, and you are fully in control. Another thing he used to say is the touch method. He used to say there is no touch method, that you touch the student's forehead over here, the teacher, the realized master touches the student's forehead over here, and suddenly his mind becomes calm, and he realizes there is no such thing. There is no such thing, you know. And as I say always, that you attend these 2 3 days workshops, they only calm your mind for a very, very short while. They relax you physically and mentally for a very short while. And after that, you are back to square one. You are back to doing all those things that you were doing previously. Hmm? So now, see, another thing is that each one of us is not able to see our own faults. There is no magic mirror which will show you what are your own faults and your own weaknesses. Our senses are turned outside, so we generally that's a common thing that happens, huh? And we are not able to see our own temptations, our own desires, our own weaknesses, and the whole life we blame others. And as Gurudev used to say, we keep fighting like dogs for dry bones. We imagine that if I get this property, I'll be happy. If I get that piece of jewelry, I'll be happy. And what is all jewelry doing? All sitting in lockers in the banks. What? And even if you donate on, how much pleasure does it give you? Who even remembers what you have won and why you have won? You may as well spend that money on something to help some people. Or that. Okay, now then the thing is how to do this. Uddaret Atmanatmanam. How to do this? Only sadhanas are prescribed for this alone. Huh? And sadhanas are prescribed at your own level. Gurudev never gave the same kind of advice to everybody. No, he didn't. It was not a blanket advice. Because see, all of us are different, uh, have different temperaments, and all of us are at different levels of evolution. Somebody is on the rung of the ladder one, somebody is on the 10th rung of the ladder, somebody is almost reaching the top. Some people are action oriented, some people are intelligence oriented, some people are academicians, some people are research oriented, and some just want to work with their hands and feet and serve. So, Gurudev used to give different kinds of advice to everybody to evolve. Huh? And since, we have to discipline the lower to attune ourselves so that we are capable of attuning ourselves to the higher. Huh? And so Gurudev used to guide in the sadhanas that one must do, different kinds of sadhanas, different kinds of activities. Huh? So you have to yourself work. Dekho, if you have the disease, can I eat the medicine on your behalf and cure you? There is no way. No matter how bitter the medicine, if you have the disease, it is only who will have to eat it. So don't depend on the teacher to lift you. The teacher is only a guide. Gurudev used to say that I am a traffic policeman. He used to say, I can only show you the way. That not that way, not that way, don't go this way, don't go this way, go this way, and you will reach. But the walking on that path, you will have to do yourself. And that is what this verse is saying. Hmm? You have to do introspection, and you have to regularly and punctually do your sadhana. Sadhana must never, never be skipped, even a single day. See, those of you who meditate, you know what the Mahatmas say. If you miss one day of meditation, you go back 6 days in your sadhana. Think about it. And you miss 2, 3, 4 days, how much back you've gone? Your own mind will tell you that you have come down, because the mind will start agitating, the mind will start, it will be restless, and it won't be a calm, beautiful, happy mind. You will notice it yourself that when you say that you have no time for sadhana, this is what happens to your mind. Well, so please understand, regularity in sadhana is extremely important if you want to lift yourself. And when you do regular sadhana, you will not go grazing about in the field of sense objects for pleasure. We only graze. Even if we don't buy, have you heard of window shopping? What is window shopping? Window shopping is nothing but grazing. I've had the grass from this field. It didn't taste good. Let me now taste the grass of that field. Grass is grass. You have enough clothes to wear, still you want to buy. That is grazing. So your mind will never rest. Huh? Now you are only dissipating mental and physical energy by extrovertedness. And that extrovertedness, never allow yourself to go back to the cheaper kind of joys, the kind of lifestyles that tempt you to come, old lifestyles where you used to run about from shop to shop, from restaurant to restaurant, from coffee place to coffee place, from person to person, thinking that I go and meet this one, I'll be happy, let me do this and I'll be happy, let me do that and I'll be happy. No, to rise on the seeker's path, you have got to understand that the objects of the world do not have the joy that you are seeking. Very soon you realize it. When you get an object, maybe for a little while you feel the pleasure, and very quickly that very thing becomes a problem. देखा है या नहीं? Hmm. Build a new house and see. When you build a new house, aha, so much of effort, money, labor has gone into building that house. And then after that, what you ask anybody who has built, they'll tell you. Some pipe is leaking somewhere, some wire is faulty, something has happened somewhere, something, and when the first rain comes, after that, watch the seepage, the leaking, the this, the that, your basement is flooded, oh my god, there's not enough ventilation here, oh my god, there's this, there's that, and then आप उसकी सेवा में लग जाते हैं. So most of us do house seva. Tejo Menanji says, a householder is he whom he holds the house and the house holds him. He can't go anywhere because of the house. I have to look after the house. So he can't travel. Think. Huh? So those old lifestyles do not and should not return. Then the self will act like a friend for you. The more extrovert you become, it acts as a foe to you. Your own mind starts behaving like a friend, and your own mind starts behaving like an enemy. And because when it starts disturbing you, when it starts agitating you, it is like an enemy only. And what agitates you? Your own mind, your own interpretation of different kinds of things. And you use those same energies to damn yourself, or you can use the same energies to bless yourself and to lift yourself. So conserve those energies from dissipating in the world, conserve them and use them for your growth. Now come to verse 6. Verse 6. It says, बन्धुरात्मात्मनस्तस्य येनात्मैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवत्. Now, the knowledge based higher self, hmm, when it makes the lower self in you controlled, it brings it under control, then it is friendly. I'll read the translation. The self is the friend of the self for him who has conquered himself by the self. But to the unconquered self, this self stands in the position of an enemy, Shatruvat. See, he says, like a Shatruvat. Hmm? Position of an enemy, like an external foe. Hmm? Just see, the same self becomes a foe, the same self becomes a friend. So when you behave instinct according to your instinct based vasanas, the self will become an enemy. And when you have controlled it and work against these, and the controlled mind will become Yukta Purush. So there is a difference over here in the Yukta Purush and the Ayukta Purush. Yukta Purush is when the mind and intellect, the instinct based mind and the rational intellect, are in sync with each other. They are friendly with each other. That is called a Yukta Purush, which you have to try to be. And Ayukta Purusha is the one where the intellect is telling him something and the mind runs out to do something totally different. Then the mind always suffers. And when the mind suffers, you suffer because you think you are the mind. And then that is an Ayukta Purush. And there is a divorce between the mind and intellect, and you are basically damning yourself. So this is almost a repetition of the verse we have already done. So now come to verse 7. जितात्मना प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु तथा मानापमानयोः. Hmm. I read the translation. The supreme self of him who is self-controlled and peaceful is balanced in cold and heat, pleasure and pain, and also in honor and dishonor. Hmm. Now, please understand, dekho, this is not the description of you and I. This is the description of a man of perfection. तो ये मत कहना कि नहीं जी ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है, दिस मैन इज लाइक अ स्टोन. ही इज नॉट लाइक अ स्टोन. He is not like a stone. देखो, there are 3 levels given over here. Now, the 3 levels are, देखो पहले तो qualities करते हैं. हाँ, one is prashantasya, the other is samahitah. This person has got these 2 qualities which they list. Prashantasya, देखो shant means peaceful. Prashant, very, very peaceful in all situations. No matter what the situation is, he is balanced, poised, equipoised, peaceful. Then Samahita. Samahita is when he has reached a sum. Everything is equal for him. He doesn't care. And what doesn't he care about? देखो, एक बात पहले समझ लो, this process, what he is saying, that he is above heat and cold, above pleasure and pain, above honor and dishonor. ये बहुत बड़ी बातें हैं, छोटी मोटी ने. Now such a man, how does he achieve this? It is a very slow process. It does not happen overnight. People are foolish enough to think that they can just go and buy it off the shelf. This is not something you can buy off the shelf. No teacher can give it to you in a single day. There is an instance in the Ramana ashram where a foreigner who had heard that self realization is the highest goal for man. So he came to stay only one night at the Ramana ashram. And he said to Ramana Maharshi, Swamiji, I am leaving tomorrow morning. And if tonight you can give me realization, I'll be very grateful. Now, this is a laughable thing because he obviously did not understand how it is done. He thought that, like so many people do, that been there, done that, got back. It is not like that. It's a very slow process. Slowly it happens, steadily it happens. You have to guard your mind day after day after day, month after month, year after year. And it is a tapasya, just like you've seen athletes training. From the time that they were children, they are selected and they are slowly trained for years and years before they can run the marathon at the Olympics, isn't it? So, if to train the physical body so much time and effort is needed, can you think how much of effort is needed to train the mind? And it happens imperceptibly, slowly. Just like the example given is just like the evening light slowly envelops the day and becomes night, covers the sun sets, the stars come out, and slowly darkness envelops the earth. Same sort of way it is like that, huh? That the mind, see, the quieter the mind, the more joyful the mind. This is true. Now here he is talking of three different levels. hmm? Cold and heat, this is level 1. This level is at the physical level. Then next is pleasure and pain, this is at the mental level. The third level is honor and dishonor, that is at the intellectual level of the personality. Now, see, the body feels cold and heat. It is not the mind. When you feel cold, you do not put a blanket on your thoughts, do you? You put a blanket on your body, right? So the cold and heat is felt by the body, so not by thoughts. So then understand that deha is the body, huh? And in Sanskrit it means something that keeps on changing, elastic. The word deha means that which is elastic. It can become small, it can become large, it can become long, it can become short, it can become fat, thin, ugly, beautiful, isn't it? So, all these changes, it can become healthy, unhealthy. From a child, it becomes a young man. From a young man, it becomes a middle aged and then an old man. So, the dharma of Deha is change. It changes continuously. So, it is the body. All things that happen at the body level are covered by heat and cold. So, all the changes and modifications in the body do not affect the man of perfection. He has developed an immunity to them, let us say. What a great thing to happen, because we are so, all the time we are disturbed with these kind of dualities. Any change that takes place in the body, we are disturbed. Oh, I got white hair, disturbance. Oh, I get got wrinkles, disturbance. Hmm? Oh God, I've put on so much of weight, disturbance. So all these changes in the body constantly harass us. But this master has gone beyond them, has risen above them. Number two is pleasure and pain. This is felt at the mind level. देखो, when an anesthesia is given to you before an operation, what do? They inject you with an anesthetic, which is injected into a bunch of nerves, which stop the nerves from reporting pain to the mind. Carefully. Huh? If the reporting is going on to the mind that, oh, my body is being cut, oh, I have got a wound over here, then the mind sends the signal of pain. But when the anesthetist has stopped the signals going to your mind, the mind does not report pain or pleasure. You don't even know what is happening to you. They cut open your stomach, you don't know. No pain is registered, isn't it? The epidural that is given to a woman who is delivering a child, a mother who is delivering a child, she doesn't feel the pain because the nerves are not reporting the pain to the mind. That's the reason. Huh? So, this is mental. Pleasure and pain are not at the body level, they are at the uh, mind level. Now, at the mind level, understand there is all your things like your emotion, huh? All these things you experience at the mental level. Now, then, love, passions, attachment, all this is at the mental level, and this man has risen above that. Now, the third one is honor and dishonor. How do you interpret that I have been honored? Who interprets that you have been honored or insulted? The intellect. The intellect judges what is happening around. The intellect judges the speech of another person and makes you understand that this is an insult or it is an honor. An experience that a person gives you, throws an abuse at you in a language that you do not understand. ठीक है? In some foreign language, maybe Dutch or German, somebody abuses you, you don't know those two languages. Does it affect you? Because the intellect is not able to judge that it was an insult. He has said it very smilingly. Your eyes have seen that he is smiling and saying something to you, but he is actually abusing you. He is giving you a gully, but you don't understand it. So, when the intellect has judged it as a friendly speech, you do not feel insulted, isn't it? So, honor and dishonor is at the intellect level. Now, here, the Gita Acharya has covered all the three levels of the personality, that he has risen above all these three levels. A perfect master, not you and me, huh? Please. And this level is very difficult to achieve. As I've already said, it takes a long time, it takes a huge amount of effort, energy, and then only you reach that supermanhood, I will call it. Supermanhood you reach, where bullets fired at you of any kind, whether at the physical or mental or intellectual level, do not affect you. You have an armor on. You are always smiling. They do not get the power to wipe the smile off your face. Think about it. In any given circumstance, the man is undisturbed, he is stoic, he has developed so much of titiksha, the same responses in every situation. He doesn't care, it doesn't affect him, he is always smiling. He is not crazy. But to understand this, that how and why and when and what is the method of achieving this thing, we will do next time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurabhyo Namaha Hari Om.